All right. So welcome to our Friday edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. This is our open Q&A session. And our goal is to be a live forum for transitioning military, veterans, military spouses, and allies to ask questions and get help while they're on the Salesforce learning journey. We can pretty much cover any Salesforce technical topic. The only exception to that is anything related to Salesforce super badges, as that's part of the Salesforce policy. But trailhead badges, issues that you're having at work, whatever it is, just use the raise hand icon and we'll do what we can to help you out. After the call, if you want to stay connected to the Military Trailblazer Office Hours community, there's a few ways that you can do that. You can sign up at mtofficehours.com and you'll receive a new weekly email instead of every single day, showing what sessions are happening that week and how you can connect. You can join our page or follow our page and join the group on LinkedIn. And then we also have our private Slack workspace that you can join as well. So with that, let me stop my share and we'll ask, does anybody have any questions or topics that they would like to go through for today?
I want to show you a flow later. We have time. That accounts for business days and holidays.
Nice.
Ryan knows. Where's Ryan?
Now, it wasn't an icon, but I did see Alyssa. Is that it? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you got?
You're gonna raise my hand then to look for the raise hands. Yeah. So this is the first time I've been here in a while. I did attend in the past, so happy to be here. Glad the timing worked out. I have an issue I've been dealing with. I posted in the Trailblazer community and still can't really figure it out. So I hope that I do a good job explaining it. So basically, I have an Experience Cloud site. We have an object called service activity where our members can go in and create service activities for different volunteer activities they've done in the community. It's public read write. And there are certain profiles. We have a really complex sharing situation in our org. So we have clubs that are under districts, that are under multiple districts, that are under constitutional areas. So it's like this account hierarchy. And based on where, so if there's an officer in District 1, that officer, based on their title, can do certain things for clubs under their district. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to service activities, everyone can see a service activity, but only certain people can edit them or delete them or check a report checkbox. So I created a before save record triggered flow that basically goes through the hierarchy to see if the sponsoring account of that service activity is within their hierarchy. And if it isn't, then they get an error that they don't have permission to perform this task. And then in order to have more control, so then I created a screen flow that I connected to a button where that just says delete. So it looks like your typical delete on a page, but it actually is a screen flow that deletes the service activity, but it's not working.
Okay.
And the user gets an error. So the user doesn't get an error. It looks like the flow finishes, but the service activity is still there.
Okay.
The one that's trying to delete.
Before we go any further, let me try to say this back to you as far as what I understand thus far, and then we'll go from there. All right.
Okay.
So you have an object called service activity, as I understand it.
Yeah.
You want to give your users the ability to delete that service activity. And the way that you're kind of exposing the delete button is through it's a button that's tied to a screen flow that, you're just trying to let them go through it. But in the screen flow, you're trying to embed logic in there to do all these checks. Is that fair? Or that's in the record triggered flow?
That's in the record triggered flow.
Okay. Okay, so let's set the screen flow part aside. If you did the standard delete button, are you getting the same issue, the same error? Or are you getting any error if you just use the standard Salesforce delete button?
That was so long ago that I tried that.
So
I was getting an error.
yeah, the reason why I asked that is just whenever we have a little bit of complexity, try to take it out as many variables as possible, right? So just the deleting by itself, that would be one of the first things that I would check. Now, okay, going back to the use case now. So we have these activities, service activities, we're trying to delete them through one way or another. And you have your hierarchy set up by club, district, and then something above district. How is that actually represented in Salesforce? Is that in the role hierarchy? Is that through some relationships on records? Is that through the um, what do you call it? The Experience Cloud partner portal type thing? Like, how's it
No, so
actually represented?
it's on the record. So each record has the hierarchy on it. So you have the account, and then each account has the district, multiple district, constitutional area, and then there's like a hierarchy stamp. It's stamped with the hierarchy when that account is created. I forgot to add one piece. So the reason why I did the screen flow was to try and change the owner of the record, because I figured the reason why we can't delete the service activity is because it's not owned by the person who's trying to delete it. So I figured if I change the owner within the screen flow, that then I would be able to, because if a person owns that service activity, if they created it and they own the service activity, the delete works fine.
So have you thought about making the flow run as the system instead?
It is.
It's running as a system and it's still, so it's not like overriding.
Mm-mm.
And is this something that you could share your screen just to kind of show us?
Yep.
The hierarchy piece, I'm still having a little bit of trouble envisioning what that actually is. Like, I understand it's on an account, but like how clubs, districts, accounts, how those are actually set up in Salesforce, that's where I have a challenge. So before we look at the flow, can you just show that kind of hierarchy piece if you can? All right, so we got an account. Okay, that makes sense so far.
Okay.
All right.
So here is the whole
Okay.
hierarchy.
Okay. Now let me ask you a question. Where would so in theory, this is the club, and then
Mhm.
this shows like what district it's a part of and everything else. Now, how do you tie a user to like an officer to say, hey, this person should have the ability to delete this account? Like, how do you connect? I'm an officer and I get down to this club that I can actually delete it. Is there
Good question.
fields on the user record as well?
So they have to be members of the club.
Okay.
And then if they're a member of the club, then they can be assigned as an officer.
Okay. Okay.
So we have this. Mhm.
So if I just had to simplify this as much as possible, oh wait, take it one step back. I'm assuming that the officer, when I look at an officer record, that has a connection to a user, or it has a connection to a member that has a connection to a user.
Yep. Yes, to an Experience Cloud, an external user.
An external user. Okay, so now that I have that understanding, let me say this back, and then we'll open it up for comments. Right. So we have an account record. The account record has a variety of fields and things in there, but ultimately you have members and you have officers. And the theory is that if I'm the logged in user and my user is connected to an officer record on this particular account, I should have the ability to delete this club.
Yes. Delete the service activity.
Oh, service activity. I'm sorry. Delete the service activity, which I'm assuming is also a related record underneath the account as well.
Yes. So,
So if you bounce back to this account, let's just take a look at that real quick.
okay.
I missed, is this a custom object?
Yes.
This account is the standard account object, and the service
Yeah,
activity is a custom object.
correct.
Okay.
So this is an example of service activity. So the service activity has a sponsor
Okay.
account that's a sponsor. So that's the club.
Okay.
So if the officer has a title within that club or above it, like in the district, then they should be able to delete the service activity.
Okay. So let's pause right there. So I'm looking at a service activity. I'm a user. I'm going to click the delete button. If the parent, so if I did a lookup, I get records in like a record triggered flow. If I did a lookup to the club, the officers, and then check that the user that I'm logged in as is related to one of those officers, it should let the delete go through correctly. And if I'm not, then it should fail. Now there's the other complexity of, am I not only in the club, but also in the district and all the other stuff, but let's just keep it simple for now. I'm an officer on that club. I should then be able to go through with the delete of the service activity. Okay.
Mm.
Now, can we, so it's an experienced cloud user. So that's the part where my knowledge starts to flounder a little bit, but can we take a look at the flow now just to see how you're doing that delete within the flow?
So the screen flow gets the service activity record that we're on in the Experience Cloud site.
And
Then
I'm
I'm
assuming, real quick, just one thing. I'm assuming you're passing in an ID into a
Mhm.
variable.
record
Okay.
ID. And then I'm updating the owner.
Okay, I might suggest that I understand why you're doing that. But yeah, let's go ahead. Okay, so then you re-get the record with the new owner potentially.
Yeah, I think I needed to do that in order for the transaction to go through, if I'm not mistaken. Then I'm checking if the owner changed. If it did, then I'm deleting the service activity. And if it was successful, then I have like a confirmation screen for the user. And
What's
if,
the
go ahead,
what's the debug telling you is going on when you're doing this?
it's successful.
What is actually in the confirmation screen or in that action?
So this is, it just says that your service activity was deleted. And then this action is returns them to like the
Redirect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then I
Okay.
had to do this whole crazy thing in order to show a message because
How about the decision? What's in the decision element? Yeah, that one. Sorry.
Was visited. Okay.
Because I know that I was having an issue with a delete record kind of issue only because later it ended up trying to reference the deleted record. So even though it was going all the way through and not like giving me a failed flow error, it was still not actually successful. That's why I was just wondering if there was any references unintentionally.
You know,
yeah,
one thing looking at that decision, I appreciate you bringing that up because I didn't realize you're using the was visited. So my question would be is if you hit that delete and then it fails, well, I guess it would never get to the decision if the
well, if
delete
it
failed.
fails, yeah, if it fails, it's going down this path
Yeah,
where
because what I was thinking is if it failed, I mean, technically it still visited it, but if it failed, it's going to take the fault path and then
Mm.
it wouldn't even
Yeah,
get to
so it's
the
like
decision.
the decision doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
Right.
You can't get there unless that was visited.
Successful.
So there's no,
Oh, I know, I don't need this is what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah.
That makes
Now,
sense.
Where was the logic where you check to see if the person is an officer and all that stuff?
Are you doing that in a different, you're doing that in a different flow? You're not doing it in this flow?
Correct. This isn't a before save flow because initially I thought because I have another flow that's similar to this that determines if they're allowed to edit the service activity based on their hierarchy. So I pretty much just recreated this for the delete, thinking that if they didn't have permission that it would just pop up that they didn't have permission. But this record triggered flow, so I have like these custom permissions and they were not displaying even when there was even when they didn't have permission. So I'm not sure, is it too small for you to see? I can just kind of walk you through it. So if they're, and it goes down if they're an officer, and then this OTA is that officer title assignment, and the officer title assignment is connected to the account. It's really complex. It's really complex, but it basically, this whole thing here just determines if their account is within their hierarchy. And then,
And you had to do this because your hierarchy wasn't actually working?
well, there's no way to check the hierarchy without using a flow.
Yeah, because the hierarchy, remember, we're talking about is not like a Salesforce feature. We're talking about like
Gotcha.
it's something that was built on the account itself. I'm curious if you debug this record triggered flow, forgetting the screen flow for a minute, but if you debug this as a user, does it work?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you debug and you select like an officer, it's going to go through correctly. And if you debug as somebody who's not in the hierarchy, it'll prevent it from going through.
Yeah. And it even goes to like, so it, yeah, it will show like not allowed to delete, and it will show this. But that's not happening in this, in the Experience Cloud site.
I may have missed it, but what is the actual error? It's just that you're seeing no result. Like when you debug it, it says it was successful, but are you seeing what branch it followed in the logic?
Yes. And it's showing this shows correctly if they're allowed to delete or not. And then in the screen flow, it's showing that the activity was deleted, but the activity is still there.
And Alyssa, if you, I'm confused as to why we need to have the screen flow delete button. And I don't know, in Experience Cloud, can you just add the standard Salesforce delete button there?
Yes. And initially I thought that this record triggered flow, that I would be able to just use the standard delete button, and
Yeah.
that this record triggered flow would work and prevent them from deleting the record.
That's what I would think. Yeah, that
yeah,
was my.
It didn't,
So if you do the standard Salesforce delete button in the Experience Cloud site, and somebody is a true officer of that club and should be able to delete the record, you're saying that when you click delete, it goes through correctly, or it
no,
throws the error?
there's an error message.
Is the error message one of the errors that you have built
It's
into your
not-
flow?
No,
What is the error message that you're getting?
good question. If you give
Let's
me,
make it happen.
yeah, I was just gonna say, if you have the time. Am I stopping anyone from asking questions?
I don't
or-
see any other
You
hands up. so
Have the
it's all
floor.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we saw the actual error, right? My guess would be it's hitting a validation error or something unrelated, like.
Yeah, I think as you're getting this, let me just say a few things, right? So whenever you have this level of complexity and something isn't working, the first thing I always try to do is try to remove as many of the variables as possible. So the screen flow in this case, I feel like the screen flow is just like an extra variable that we shouldn't have to worry about right now. Because ultimately, if it's deleting the record, that delete action within the screen flow is going to be calling your record triggered flow. And I don't know why you're not getting the error passed back up where you can see it, but if we can get that error from just clicking standard delete, I think that would be the best place to start.
Okay, so I'm removing the custom button.
Now, going forward, one thing I like to do also, if you're creating a custom button with the same label as the standard button, while you're testing, just call it like delete custom. And then that way you can keep them both there. And
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point.
yeah, I'll tell you what, Experience Cloud is definitely one of those, it's definitely on the periphery of my knowledge when it comes to Salesforce. I know there's a lot of like nuance for how this works.
I just learned today that Community Plus users can have access to reports. You just have to create a permission set.
ah.
This looks really cool, by the way. I don't know if you built this, but if you did, it looks great.
I'm sorry, say that again. What was the permission set thing?
So I had a client this morning that one of their community portal plus users didn't have access to their reports, like to be able to export reports.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have to.
I forgot one other thing. So this was interesting, and maybe this will have some light bulbs go off. So if I create, so in order to test, delete, so they can, sorry, I missed this part. So they can delete a service activity if they created it. So what I tried to do in the back end, in the internal org, as myself, I created a service activity. And I'm able to then logged in as my Joseph Joestar, and I'm able to delete the service activity that I created.
I'm
the-
assuming that logic is in that same record triggered flow saying if the created by is equal to me, let it go through.
I would just like to say that your fake name is awesome.
Where
Oh.
where is that logic then? If it's not in that same record triggered
I
flow where
don't
you're checking the
know. I have no
Okay.
idea.
So again, let's set that aside for
Discovered
now.
that.
Let's
Yeah.
go through the delete where we can actually recreate the error message, and then we can jump to the other piece there.
Okay. Created by this guy. Okay, this is the error.
Doesn't really give us much to go off of, huh? Could we potentially grab a debug log to see why this might be thrown? Could we add that? Can you add experience cloud users to the debug logs? I don't have any idea.
Let's see why not.
I don't know either, but can you like pull like the dev console thing so it like shows the things that are running when you click so you can see what happened?
Yeah, well,
Like-
that's exactly what I'm trying to do with the
sorry.
debug log. I just don't know with the developer console if it's open, even if you uncheck that like for current user checkbox. I don't know if you can see Experience Cloud activities through that. But this is definitely a surefire way of being able to get around that.
I'd like to know if your flow ran at all.
Yeah. Well, you can do that
Because
too. You can pull up the
It looks like
automation.
it didn't. Does that look like the message you would get because you just don't, that's not your record, so you can't delete it?
Yeah, if you pull up the automations thing, we can see which flows have just run.
Okay, hold on.
Top one, yeah, I would just go with that. Yeah, no, before we navigate anywhere else, let's go right back to the Experience Cloud site, click that delete button, and let's just see if we capture a log here at all. Okay, let's see if we refresh that, if we get anything here.
No.
Okay, now here's a question then. So I think Megan or somebody else might have mentioned this, but when you click the standard Salesforce delete button, I'm assuming that it's going to apply all the standard security stuff first before it even gets to your record triggered flow, right?
Mhm.
In other words, like if I didn't have, if you had an org-wide sharing default or whatever the sharing level that you have for external orgs as like read only, and then you try to click the delete button, I'm assuming it would throw that error before you even got into your flow, right?
Mhm.
So I'm curious, what is the org-wide sharing for that object, that service activity?
Public read write.
In the interest of trust but verify, can we go to the sharing settings site and just take a look at that?
Sure. So here's service activity.
Okay, and it looks like you have that for internal and external as public read write. Okay. And the profile of the user that you were logged into, can we just take a look at that real quick, just to see what access that they have on that object?
And then can we check automations and see if the flow ran?
Yes.
Thanks. I love it when Sandy laughs at me in public.
Okay, so service activity.
Okay, so it looks like you got everything that they would need there. Delete permissions to that. Okay, yeah, so let's take a look at that flows. And the next thing I was going to suggest is if we just deactivated that record triggered flow and tried to use the standard
Sorry,
delete
it does
button.
say varies by record type. Does that have, could record type have anything to do with it?
It's, they should have access to all record types.
Delete access would be driven based on record type.
But they're, no, but
Yeah,
he was saying it varies by record type, but they have access to all.
So yeah, let's take a look at that. Megan, where do you get to that? That you were
Are you
talking
talking
about?
about like the failed?
No, go back to your main, like your actual org. Just click back over to, yeah, just go to the top, go back to where service activity is, or whatever your thing is.
So
Yeah, in
tab-
app launcher,
Oh, sorry.
Yep. type automation. There we go.
I never knew you could do that.
And then let's see what ran. There you go. Click on that where it says recently modified. Let's see where that's modified. We don't want modified. So click on the, it's a little weird. So click on that. Yep. Just click on it. Now you can change it and do all flows. And we want last ran. Gosh dang, I can't remember where to find it. Do you remember, Ryan? Ryan, are you there?
Yeah, I thought where you're looking for was actually in setup. Like there's a
Maybe it isn't set up. I've been using this.
I never even knew this existed.
This is
The newer
new.
thing they've been pushing, the new flow
Go
automation.
click errored flows. Maybe, oh, that's what I was using. Sorry, I was using errored flows
it looked
because
like
I was
error now.
getting. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can get that through like the failed flows too, but
Yeah. But we want to see if it actually ran. So there's a beta for that too. But it just tells you how many flows ran. I'm trying to remember how we did this.
So just real quick, taking a quick step back. So in theory, the way that you have the service activity set up, the way your profile security is right now, if you deactivated every single flow that you have, screen flow, record triggered flow, they're all deactivated from the Experience Cloud site, public read write again. If you go into that service activity and click delete, it should go through no problem because everybody's got access to everything and it should go through. So I'm curious if you deactivated your record triggered flow, get all that logic out of the pipeline and go into your Experience Cloud site and click delete. If you still can't delete that record, then there's something else preventing it that we have to figure out before we even touch your logic, right? Okay, so that kind of tells me that all the complexity of the flows we can set aside. And the question we have to answer is, this logged in user, why aren't they able to delete a service activity when it's set up as public read write? Now, you showed me that officer profile and we saw that it had access, but can you just show me real quick this logged in user? Can we look at the username and then just confirm that that is in fact a person that's in that profile? Because I thought I saw that there was 2 users with the same name.
one was Johnny and one was Joseph.
I also have bad vision, so I squint when I look at these things.
Yeah, so this is
Those Joe stars, they do that.
Profile. Okay, so Joseph Joestar. All right, and profile was officer.
The role
Um,
could be getting away also.
Okay, so why can't this user now? Who owns that record that we were looking at? That you can't delete.
By Kato Higashikata.
And where does Kato live in the role and profile of that user?
Good question. Hold on. I think he's an officer too.
No, yeah, forgetting all that because officer titles are irrelevant at this point because we turned off the flow. Looking at that user who owns the record, what profile is that user in and where are they in the role hierarchy, if at all?
He's an officer too.
Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong, and this is kind of a general question for everybody, but even if you have delete access, you have public read write on the object that you're trying to delete. If that record is owned by somebody above you on the role hierarchy, I don't know if you have the ability to delete that, right? It would
You
fail
can.
in that case.
No, you
No,
can delete
you-
it.
no,
You
you
can
hit it
delete it unless
exactly.
something else blocks you, like a validation rule that's running against the record trigger, like a flow-based validation rule, Apex-based validation rule, or a lookup that doesn't allow you to delete the parent. Like all those would block it.
Got it. Yep. So definitely if we have something in place that would prevent deletion of that record, like validation rule wouldn't prevent deletes, right?
Not an old school validation, but a trick-based
Apex.
or a flow would.
Okay.
I got
I
an
think
article
you
that's
need
disagreeing
about-
with you on that.
You would see the validation error if it was a validation, I would think. I don't know about Experience Cloud, but I would assume. Are we sure it's not the role hierarchy? Because that seems to me like, I mean, it seems like your standard Salesforce permission thing. It's something, it's hitting some level of permission. It's either
The role
sharing,
hierarchy,
hierarchy.
I
the
thought
role
she
hierarchy
said it
only
was in,
affects sharing.
Oh, wait,
Sharing
guys,
is
we're
publicly read.
hold on, wait, we're talking over each other. I couldn't hear. One at
I
a time.
thought
Yeah.
that she said that this was an internally built hierarchy that they had to map out themselves and
Yep.
is not actually using Salesforce
Yeah.
hierarchy.
Yeah, again, the hierarchy piece, we're completely ignoring that now because we turned off that flow, so that part's irrelevant. What we're looking at now is you have two users that are both officers as a profile, but if they're sitting in different levels of the role hierarchy, in other words, somebody's sitting over here and somebody's sitting here, and the record's owned by somebody up here, and the officer here delete that record. And Ryan, I think you said you found an article that might say something to that.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, I thought. And it basically says giving read write doesn't do it. If you're not higher in the role hierarchy. Now, somebody can help me interpret this. Did I interpret it wrong? But I think what it is saying is that Ken's right.
I've tried to study. I mean, there's literally a video series on like Salesforce, like all the interactions between like role hierarchy, org level share. I mean, I watched 15 videos. I've watched it like 3 times, and I mean, it's so complex. I always go to probably role hierarchy because it's usually that when you see something like this.
Is it controlled by the parent?
Basically you can't delete I always get this mixed up, but you can't, let's think about this logically. Like if you're a sales manager and a sales rep creates something, the sales manager can delete what the sales rep created, but the sales rep can't delete what the manager created, right? Like in that kind of that's the way I think of it. I think that's how role hierarchy works. So if you have your role hierarchy with sales rep below sales manager, despite all the permissions, I don't think they'd be able to delete the sales manager's record that he created or she. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But in this particular case, like their role is
Are
the
they
same.
the same? Was the other one customer person account or was it something else? I thought
No,
it was
it's the same.
okay.
Well, can we leave this one up and just duplicate your tab? That way we can kind of look at them side by side. Because what I'm looking at here, it says that public read write does not bypass role hierarchy when it comes to permissions. That's what I'm understanding here.
Yeah, the role hierarchy will still get you.
Yeah, you got to be higher or have modify all, it says.
Yeah.
Not equal. You got to be higher to delete someone
Oh,
else's
yeah,
record.
there's that
You can't
too,
delete
right.
my records unless you're higher than me.
Exactly.
So let's look at these people side by side. Let's see if are they in the same role or are they in different roles?
Same role, BCHAR. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now the question is, does the same level of the role hierarchy allow you to delete somebody's record that's in the same level of the role hierarchy?
Not according to that Salesforce article.
Yeah,
No,
so I'm wondering then.
So then someone put in there about an integration user. So if we assigned all service activities to an integration user and have that user above everyone in the hierarchy, then that would.
Well, they would need the integration. If you were going to go that model where you put all the records owned by
Below.
the same user, it would have to be below them in the role hierarchy. Now, so just before we move off this, just to confirm that this is in fact the issue that we're running into, right? We've already removed all the complexity of screen flow, the record triggered flow. Now we're saying that they're in the same role of the role hierarchy, and we're saying that the delete won't work because it's owned by another user at the same level, not somebody below you. So I'm curious, just for testing, could we take the user temporarily, this user that we're looking at right here, put them in a role below Joseph, and then try to delete again? And if it goes through, I think that's the only variable that we change. I think that we'd be pretty, you know, pretty good in saying that it is a role hierarchy issue. And then we can come up with solutions as far as like everybody owns, one user owns them all. We put them somewhere in the hierarchy. Can it be owned by somebody outside the hierarchy? And will that have an impact? Do we go view all, modify all? There's a lot of things that we can do, but let's just confirm that this is in fact the issue.
These are the only roles.
I like your train of thought, Bill. I would second that. Yeah, just put them below, see what happens.
Well, let's do this. Yeah, let's do this. Let's go into the user again before we create a new one. Why aren't we seeing that role from the user in there? So if you click on that role, just click right on the name of the role. Is there some separate hierarchy that is in effect for Experience Cloud users that we need to be aware of here? Because I don't see that role over in the standard.
Oh God, I forgot about that part.
So if we go into the community, the Experience Cloud site, is there something there that we have to work around with?
You have to establish that over there too.
It's got like its own separate role hierarchy.
It does. No, it does.
Another layer of permissions and things. We'll do a 17th video on that. Okay. I let you
There is
guys
a
see
video.
that. I think it's Apex Hours has a whole series on this. It's
No,
crazy.
there is a video on that because I'm setting for Experience Cloud right now because I'm using it finally. So I figure I'll test while I'm actually having to use it on a daily basis.
There's
There
a
it is.
whole series of
Site role.
Who sees what? It's called Who Sees What? if you want.
for external or community cloud also.
Does anyone know?
so-
There's a video where it shows you like the crossing of like bloop 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 and then like over and like how it all goes.
Now, before we get to the second bloop, let's scroll down to the first bloop here and see.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. So this is basically what? Site role. I don't think that's what we're talking about here, this site role, right? Where would we find that role hierarchy that we're talking about?
Not here. Go to no, I mean in here, but like go, it's not in this part. Go up to set. There's a thing where it's gonna tell you like how many you have, like 2 to 1. It's not over here. Freaking A, let me find it. It's in the setup. I think it's actually on the main side, like not here. I think it's you build it, go back to all sites.
Well, I wonder if we could cheat, right? If we just go to that user and just click on the name, don't edit the user, but just go to the user and click on that role name, would take us directly to the page
Here?
that we need. Yeah, go to the user record itself.
So basically you put in your layers of your hierarchy on the site. Like you'll have a hierarchy level. So if you have 2, you'll have like a manager over a subordinate from the Experience Cloud site as well. So you'd put there's 2 levels when you do the site. I'll find it.
But listen, if you go to the user record like you were looking at, where we were looking at the profile and the role, and just click on the role name.
On the roll. Oh,
In regular Salesforce.
Yeah, like if you just click on it right there. Yep.
I thought you meant. Okay.
Okay. So it looks like then this role, and I see the role that was in the hierarchy. Okay, so do me a favor. Let's go back to the standard role page. Just click on roles over on the far left there. Yeah, and then what view do you have this set up as? Yeah, go ahead and set up roles. Okay, and just go ahead and click edit next to that view for a sec. Is there there's no nothing filtering it out, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay, do me a favor, yeah, let's go back to the user role that you had clicked on. If you go back there to that one, back one more. Yep, keep going back just till we get to that one where we saw the role name and the user and who it reported to and all that stuff. Okay, so this reports to LCI staff. If you just click on that LCI staff link,
That
or
is
LCI manager. If you click on LCI manager, and then click on LCI leadership.
Sorry, I may have missed it. Is this like just in Experience Cloud, this role hierarchy that we're looking at?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to figure out. Megan, were you able to come across
Yes.
where that is?
So go back to workspace, go back to all sites,
Mhm.
go to spaces. You want the workspace, not the builder. There you go. Under your admin, you need to go to members. And then you need to find your site roles, it says. And I don't
Yeah,
see
we got
your
site role at the bottom there, but it doesn't look like there's anything underneath there.
Click custom and see what you have. See how many you have already. There you go.
Yeah, I think these roles are different than the like a
Those are
hierarchy though.
different.
So
They
it
are.
doesn't show you like the hierarchy like it does in the regular role.
Yeah, I would cancel that or yeah, just go
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, go back. That's not.
So I was getting at is can't you just see the hierarchy like you can in the regular?
No. I think they're all at the same level. I'm embarrassed to say I do have my Experience Cloud certification, but I think they're all at this, I think all of the users.
Didn't you also
Right,
say
but-
that the in the flow you were running it as a system and not as the user? So where does the system, I guess, or where is all that?
We're pre-flow at this point, though. We're just
Yeah,
I know.
it's not-
regular delete isn't working.
Yeah, flows are I think irrelevant at this point.
But even if the flow wasn't working either, like that part wouldn't necessarily explain that either, I guess.
But the flow would still run under the user context unless you put sharing, what is it called, system context without sharing or whatever that gives access to everything. I don't know how that works with Experience Cloud, but yeah, the flows are relevant. But so we are saying that the role, I might have missed it, but the role, if there's, I would assume Experience Cloud behaves the same as regular Salesforce in that like if like to the article, whoever sent, sorry, that if you're at the same level, you still can't delete someone else's. So have we ruled that out?
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah. So
Okay.
in the top right corner there, that drop down where it says show unsorted list view, what other options you have there? Yeah, so we don't have see if you can navigate down that. I think it's
Oh.
just going to give you those
Hands all
three, right?
across.
Yeah, guess what? Yeah. Oh, can you keep going?
Can we just change the owner of the record that we're trying to delete to the community user? Because if that works, then that is the problem. It's sharing and delete. It's not something else.
Oh, found it.
So you're saying, JT, you're saying change the owner of that record that we're trying to delete to Joseph.
Right.
Well, that's what I was trying to do in the flow. Why is this not?
The flow won't be able to unless it's running in system context because it is running as the user and the user can't change the owner of a record owned by somebody else that's higher than them.
I think you also need to set up a sharing rule on the record for that object. And my experience with Experience Cloud might have been because I was the guest user, but I couldn't get it to do anything until I did that.
What's the external sharing set to? Is it public
Public.
rewrite on there, or is it also,
Public.
is it private?
Public
Public.
reader. Mhm.
If you yeah, I don't know.
Can you humor me one more time? Because I have to go to a meeting.
Say that
Go,
again.
can you humor me one more time? Because I have to go to a
Sure.
meeting. Go back to your main setup. I just typed it in there. Click digital experiences. And then go to settings. And then now you can see where your roles are. There. Now you can see how many roles you have for your those are your partner roles. So you do have 2. So on your partner accounts, you can see who's been assigned. Now you just need to go find what your roles are and see who's been assigned to those roles.
How do we get to that?
That will tell you. I haven't got that far and I have to go. But here's
I
the
think-
trick.
I think we found the 2 already, right?
So you have the 2, so now you'll know.
So here are the roles. So
But when you find out which one's the higher one, then you'll know like who manages it. Because you only have two, but you have three. So when we were looking at those ones earlier on the thing, those were your three customer roles, but you have two partner roles as well.
Mhm.
So, all right. It was lovely, y'all. Miss you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Meg.
Yeah, so I think so now I fully understand. So basically the record is owned by a different user. This user's trying to delete it. They can't because they're at the same level of the hierarchy, or that record's owned by somebody higher up. So that's where you were getting at, where when you click delete with a custom delete button, you would change the ownership first to the person trying to delete it and then see if the delete would go through. I understand why you're doing that, but I think that's probably muddying the water and trying to figure out how to give delete access to, I'm assuming you want delete access to all users that are in the community, and you would only stop it if your custom hierarchy stuff didn't go through, right? So I think that the number one thing we have to solve now before we talk about any flows or anything else is how to give access to all users of the community to delete sharing activity records.
That's super dangerous, though. I mean, it'd be a
Who
lot
would want to do
safer
that?
to give
Right?
give them the ability to tag a record, like they check a box that says they want it to be deleted, and then have something that's running in system context internally go through and delete those records.
That's a way. Yep. So if I say that back to you, so essentially have a delete button on the layout for them, custom delete button, that it doesn't delete the record, but it updates the record and sets a flag to delete record to true. And then you have your record triggered flow running in system context that is, checks all your criteria. And if it's valid, then it actually deletes the record. So they don't get to delete it
And a
directly.
scheduled,
They just
yeah,
get to
or a
update
scheduled
it.
process. Yeah.
But then they're not being informed if it's actually being deleted or not.
Why does it need to be
A little
deleted?
wonky. I mean, why not just only
Well,
the-
hold on, guys. Hold on, one at a time.
Yeah, why
Steve-
does it need to be deleted? Like we're talking about a server session. It's like an event or something.
Because
And-
they report on all these and it's all,
But what is it, like the event didn't take place? Like it was cancelled or?
they accidentally put something in. That's a good question, but I think it's mainly like they accidentally put in a service activity or they planned it and it didn't happen.
Because I mean, like for me, I'd still think that's kind of useful. And like your reports, you could filter out, if the status was cancelled or did not occur or something.
Yeah.
Then they never even need delete access. Or if it's,
How
like
often-
duplicated, like created by accident, like they can flag that and then you as the admin can kind of come in. I have a scheduled job, like if it truly is. But yeah, I don't know, like if delete is even the right end goal.
just as a practice, I mean, isn't that why, or like the sharing exists as it does, like at the role hierarchy? Because I mean, you only want to be able to delete your own stuff, not other people's stuff. So the same would carry over with Experience Cloud, right? Like even though like you'd only have the option to delete if you were the one that created it in the first place. Why would you, maybe we're saying the same thing, like why would you ever delete someone else's, I guess?
Well, you might be a manager and you're trying to delete your team stuff, or you might be
Right,
the
that's
officer
when
of
the
a club
hierarchy
and
would
you have
come
the
in.
overall management for the entire club. I think that's where we're getting.
Right, so that's when the
They've
role
been
hierarchy,
doing this for
because then the
100
manager would
years.
be able to do it, but no one else would be able to do it because the role hierarchy would determine that. Does that make sense?
Say that again.
Like that's the whole point of the sharing, the role hierarchy, right? So like managers running this, he can do it as I assume, again, I'm just assuming Experience Cloud works the same. I'm sure it does, like with the role
Yes,
hierarchy.
yeah.
Right, so like if the manager's hitting the delete, he can do it because it's somebody below him in the role hierarchy. But if a peer tries to do it, they can't delete someone else's. That's how it should work, and I would think you'd want it to work.
Yeah, but that's not how they want it to work. They want to have a special thing in there that says that if you're an officer of the club, regardless as to all of their Salesforce functionality, if you're the officer that's listed on that club, you should be able to delete any service activity assigned to that club, regardless as to who owns it, who created it, where they live in the hierarchy. That's the custom security that they're trying to implement.
Right, so then you
Um,
would need a custom, I think someone said it, either I think it's a sharing role, or maybe you can do it with a permission set, but I think it's a sharing role to override the role hierarchy, I think. Again, I
So,
haven't watched all 20 videos lately, but I
So-
think
Yeah, this is Steve. I said it was a sharing rule. That's what I've run into when I use Experience Cloud. I have to set up a sharing rule on, say, the service activity object, so they can get access to that record, or it won't let them do anything.
I
But like I
think that-
said, But like I said, I'm using usually the guest user, so but I don't know how the partner accounts and all that work, but Experience Cloud for me, I have to put up a rule on a custom object in order to do anything with it.
So I
So-
thought about that, but I don't think with the read write, sharing rules give you the ability to read or read write. And with read write, you can't delete. So even if I
Yeah.
had a sharing rule, it wouldn't let the record be deleted.
That same article confirms that.
So just, do we ever verify Bill's original point? Like, we still haven't figured out where they are in the hierarchy to just see if we move them if it
They're at the
works?
same level. Yeah, they're at the same level right now.
No, I mean, did we ever figure out if we can put them in the person who's trying to delete in a higher level and see if it works? Or vice versa?
I mean, yeah, that's one thing that we could just verify instead of trying to we could just go into Joseph's user record and put them. I think right now they're set as user. I think the next level up was what, like manager, something like that.
But I think those are internal roles, aren't they?
Well, if you
The,
Those
go
are
just
roles
straight to the user
only-
record itself,
Yeah,
Just
but
go
those
to-
rules only apply to other community users that are part of the same account. So it's not going to trump a record owned by like an internal user.
Oh, I mean, this is all in the same
but
account.
but the users in question, the owner of the record and the person trying to delete, they're in the same role right now. Same role, same profile. So if we go to Joseph, the user record for Joseph right now, I'm watching the clock. We got about 5 minutes left. If we don't solve this, that's going to ruin my entire weekend. I just want to tell you.
oh my, listen, I've been
Um,
working on this for weeks. I keep putting it away and bringing it back.
Yeah,
I
let's-
appreciate you spending all this time on this.
Yeah, no worries. Let's take a look. Yeah, if we just edit this user now, what are the options that you have in the role field when you edit this?
Don't have any.
It's just that one, right?
But again, this
Okay.
is the standard Salesforce role. This isn't experience. I
It
mean,
is- it's not though. It's not though.
Yeah,
It's not-
It's
You
not
know
the
that-
standard Salesforce role.
I checked my object. It is public read write, and I still had to set up that sharing role in Experience site.
All right,
But what
Let's,
I'm
uh,
saying,
just for fun.
yeah,
If we try to set up that sharing rule, roles and subordinates share with roles and subordinates, Ryan, you're thinking that's not going to work? I saw some doubt coming through the.
I mean, you can try it. The same article that explained why this isn't working in the first place has a line that says users below you in the hierarchy. It doesn't say the same though. So
So what would be the only way
It
to get
doesn't say the
delete
same.
access?
so you could try it. You could try this.
Just try
I-
the chain rule? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you could try it.
Right.
As I read this again, it just says it won't work for users below you in the hierarchy. It doesn't say anything about users at the same level. So
Yeah, so if we set this up as a role and subordinates with role and subordinates, let's just give it a whirl. And then I want to reserve the last 2 minutes to kind of wrap this up and maybe talk about potential next steps before we all have to go. Yeah, so that doesn't look right. Yeah.
yeah, these are
Yeah,
all,
what are the other options you got there? What's that bottom one? Okay, so if we did
this is
you-
the portal roles.
but you still don't see that role there, right?
This one. So owned by members of this.
Share with the same members of that, yeah, role and subordinates to that.
Um,
And again,
Is access level read write? Is there any other option there besides read write? Like
it's
read
read
write?
or
read
read
all.
write. I already thought about this, and when I researched, I said, does sharing rules, read write sharing rules give you access to delete? From what I heard, I didn't actually try it. But what I saw was that you can't.
yeah, I agree, and I think with the article that Ryan shared would confirm that. But I've also seen Salesforce documentation lack a little bit, so it's just to give it a whirl and try it.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, then like I said, in the last minute and a half, because we only have 2 minutes left, I want to talk about next steps that you could try.
I
No, I
put a help article on the Slack channel since this is about to time out. So
Thank you.
prediction is it's not going to work. Okay. All right. So let's pause right there then. Listen, I'm gonna stop your sharing for a second. So as far as next steps, then I think where we're at right now with this issue, we had a very large, very complex flows and all that kind of stuff. We've removed all that complexity from it. Now where we're left with is you have a record owned by one particular user. You have another user in the same level of hierarchy, same profile, same Experience Cloud site that needs to be able to delete that record, and they can't using standard Salesforce, right? So what are the options that would go forward? Now I'm just going to list them off here, and then we'll pause and people can throw out other options, and then I think we're going to have to end the call. Somebody had mentioned the soft delete mechanism, where you basically give them some button you can click on that instead of actually deleting the record, it would update the record to be set a flag to pending delete is true, and then you could do whatever you want with that. You can either filter it out and not show them. You can have a record triggered flow running in system mode that would then delete the record if you've already done all your checks and whatnot. So kind of that soft delete approach, and then handle delete somewhere else. I don't like this idea, but that view all, modify all, I mean, that's something to test just to confirm that that does in fact work. That could be something to look at. Any other options that we want to throw on the table without too much detail, because we are out of time and I got a hard stop coming up here. Any other thoughts before we take this one to Slack?
What's the
Sandy,
flag file again? Is it Resource Hero?
no, it's the Military Trailblazer office hours. Yeah, Sandy, if you could put Alyssa on the list for the fruit basket, we'll go for that. So, all right, guys, let's pick this back up in the Slack. Alyssa, are you a part of the Slack workspace? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. All right, so let's jump over there. Appreciate everybody's assistance on this one. Couldn't get it done in the time that we have, but we'll keep working at it somewhere else. And if I don't talk to you all, have a great weekend.
I really
Thanks.
appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yep.